custody to avoid further violence. The US has imposed tariffs on $7.5 billion of EU goods, with some subject to a 25% tariff. It's the real battle over aircraft subsidies paid by the EU to Airbus, which were ruled illegal by the World Trade Organization. FSN's Gillian Wolfe reports from New York.
Wine, cheese, and olives are just some of the products subject to a price hike here in the U.S. Wine, which made up about 32% of non-EU exports by the EU in 2017, went to the U.S. European cheese, which has soared in popularity here, will also be hard hit. And a staple item, olive oil, home to a region in Spain that's responsible for about half of the global output, will surely feel the strain. Other items, such as Scottish malt and cashmere sweaters, will also be affected by the move. But products more valuable to the U.S. economy, like machines, have largely been excluded from the tariffs, allowing Washington to apply pressure on the EU while avoiding undue harm back at home.
The UK Parliament will sit on a Saturday for the first time in 37 years this weekend. The rare session has been called so MPs can vote on the Brexit deal Prime Minister Boris Johnson secured with Brussels on Thursday. FSN's Holly Hudson reports from London.
There is now less than 2 weeks to go before Britain is set to leave the EU, and after clinching a last-minute deal, Boris Johnson is one step closer to fulfilling his pledge of getting Brexit done by the 31st of October. But now MPs have to decide whether to get behind it. And as the clock is ticking, they've been called to the House of Commons for a special session on what is now being dubbed Super Saturday. Parliament has only sat on a Saturday 3 times since the outbreak of the Second World War, the last of which was when Argentina invaded the Falklands in 1982, proving just how crucial Super Saturday is set to be for both Brexit and Boris Johnson.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Olivia Munn with my shelter pets, Frankie and Chance. Say hi, guys. When I adopted them, I discovered that they both have incredible personalities. Chance's sole purpose in life is to love and to be loved. Frankie is a little bit of a scoundrel and always entertaining. They're a little bit of a lot of things, but they're all pure love. Adopt pure love at theshelterpetproject.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, the Humane Society of the United States, and Maddie's Fund.
If you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music.
This is Mommy's jam.
Then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
This is a test of the emergency podcast system. Activated by contract termination. Rumors of our demise are greatly exaggerated. Welcome to Stacy on the Right with your host, Stacy Washington. She's blessed to be a Bible-reading, gun-toting, Air Force veteran, wife and mom, righteously American.
Happy Friday. How y'all doing? How are you guys feeling? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just say I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good. After a really, really tough week. It's been tough, but God is good. He is able. He is able to hold us up when we can't hold ourselves up. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so glad to have you just rocking it out with us here. We are going to do a ton of different stuff today. It's Friday, so it's an easy day for us. We're going to talk about Greg Gutfeld defending President Trump's simple logic on Syria. I thought this was a great kind of analysis by Greg Gutfeld. He and I seem to be somewhat on the same page. I'm with him on this. So we'll talk about that. And I would love it if you would remember to share the show. If you are watching this and you love it, share it. And then if you have anything that you're interested in seeing on the show, you can always send tips to us on the direct messages on the Facebook page, or you can email them to Stacy on the right at gmail.com. That's how you can get in touch with us. And then don't forget to support our Patreon account if you feel so led. It's patreon.com/Stacy on the right. And the PayPal is, of course, easy. It's paypal.me/Stacy on the right. You can support us there as well. Okay. So the title of today's show, that's what we're going to launch into straight off the bat. It's not Greg Gutfeld. It's Billy Porter. Billy Porter, but if you're wondering, that's a man. He's famous for those of us who aren't like constantly watching the Hollywood stuff, because I think it was the Oscars. He wore, basically it looked like a tuxedo from the top so from shoulders to waist, it looked like a tuxedo, but then at the bottom, it ballooned out into tuxedo fabric in the shape of a skirt. So it was basically a ball gown. And he was really celebrated for wearing this. Like, it was supposed to be so innovative, and him just breaking outside of a mold or a box. I never saw anything that looked so ridiculous, except when people with beards like dress up as chicks and they have all their man stubble showing, and then they're also dressed as a woman. That's kind of ridiculous too. And so here's the story. Over at Broadway World, BroadwayWorld.com, links in the show notes. They recently reported this rumor that Billy Porter would be joining the cast of the upcoming Cinderella film from Sony. Now, the film stars Camila Cabello, someone else, I don't know who she is. But again, so when I was younger, when I was in my 20s and my early 30s, oh my goodness, I knew who everyone in Hollywood was, what movies they were in, all that stuff. Now, we still go see movies quite a bit over the course of a year. We'll see whatever we think is good. We don't avoid the movie theater or anything like that, but I don't know as many of the people by name as I used to. And, I think that maybe that's a part of being like a mom and having kids and trying to keep track of my kids' friends' names and my friends and my husband's friends and everyone that we know that we work with or interact with takes much higher precedent. But still, you would think I would be familiar with some of them, but I'm not. So according to Deadline, Porter confirmed that he is joining the film in a Q&A Saturday evening at the New Yorker Festival. He will take on the role of, drum roll. That's a soundbite I need. Let me make myself a note. A drum roll. He's going to be the fairy godmother, y'all. Now, I know if you're anything like me, the first thing you're thinking is, but he's a dude. Wouldn't your fairy godmother be a woman? Or if it was a man, wouldn't he be your fairy goddad? So what would be wrong if someone said, I want to be a fairy goddad, and so there was a fairy goddad? Why wouldn't that be okay? I'm just wondering. I'm not saying that I want a fairy goddad, but I am saying, is there any reason why there wouldn't be a fairy goddad? So apparently there is not any plan to create a fairy goddad. There's only just going to be this guy who's going to be the fairy godmom. And I am annoyed. So I noticed a lot of people on Facebook were posting, well, the thing is, I'm glad my kids aren't kids anymore. I'm glad my kids are grown. But for those kids who are growing up with this, remember, a lot of what we saw as kids normalized things for us. Like when we were kids, not all of the characters, if you're anywhere in my age range, not all of the characters when you were a kid talked. The animals anyway. The people talked, but the animals didn't always talk. Do you remember way back in the day from my parents' childhood, I guess, Tom and Jerry, they actually didn't talk. They communicated through what they were doing. So Tom and Jerry, you still knew what they were doing. You knew what they were thinking. Mighty Mouse, none of these ones actually talked. No one in the cartoon talked. But nowadays, all of the cartoon characters, animals, even the cups, obviously from Cinderella. Was it Cinderella? No, it was Beauty and the Beast, where the teacup and all of those, the spoon and everything, they all came to life and they talked. So what I'm saying is, whatever you see in the cartoons as a kid is what is normalized for you. So if kids grow up with this image of the fairy godmom actually being a man, or that if the fairy godparent is going to be someone different, it's going to be someone gay, and that's acceptable, then that's what the kids will think is acceptable. So I'm not saying that there's no role for this man in the movie. I'm saying that he shouldn't be the fairy godmom. Okay? That's what I'm saying. And for parents, if you're trying to decide, or for your grandkids, because I know this is a thing where the grandparents are the ones who take the kids to the movies. I don't think it's okay. I'm not telling you what to do, but I don't think it's okay for us to take our kids to a movie where the fairy godmom is a man. He's obviously going to be duded up with makeup on. If you Google him, you'll see he's been in a lot of stuff. Let me give you a little bit more detail on him in case you're like me, you don't know who he is, which basically also, let me also point out, it's also recently rumored that Idina Menzel, she's the one who voiced, she's done a couple of movies. I think it was The Greatest Showman. She was one of the singers in it. And then Idina Menzel, she was also the voice of the Frozen characters, the ones who sang. She has a great voice. She's going to join as the evil stepmother. The adaptation is described as a modern retelling of the classic story of Cinderella, directed and written by Kay Cannon. Okay. It will shoot in London starting in February of next year. And Billy Porter, in case you're wondering, who is this man? He is a Tony, Emmy, and Grammy Award-winning singer, composer, actor, playwright, and director from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He currently stars in Pray Tell on the FX series Pros. He stars Pray Tell on the FX television series Pose. Okay. He originated the role of Lola in the Broadway hit Kinky Boots, which won him 2013 Tony, Grammy, Drama Desk, and Outer Critics Circle Awards. Other theater that he's done is Shuffle Along, Miss Saigon, Five Guys, Grease, Smokey Joe's, Dreamgirls, Angels in America, Merchant of Venice, Radiant Baby, Birdie Blue, Songs for a New World, Ghetto Superstar, which is a one-man show, Top Dog, Underdog, and King Lear. He also has albums. I'm going to read you all those. So the idea that this guy is famous in Hollywood and that he's obviously a big deal. But should he be the fairy godmother? And if he is, should we take our kids or our grandkids or anybody else's kids to go see this? I'm weighing in here. I'm going to say no. Not because I don't like fun, not because I don't think that anybody can do anything, but this is ridiculous. And the obliteration of gender normativity in America only leads to harm for those who are subject to it. So for you and me, where I know I'm a woman, you know you're a man, and we're all good, we are going to be fine. It's the children who are growing up confused. Because remember, over 90% of kids who think they're LGBT, once they're out of puberty and they no longer have the hormones rushing around, they normalize. They go back to their true gender identity. Also of note, facial recognition, artificial intelligence actually genders people as their born gender or their birth gender, even when they're like dressed up and have on makeup and are living as someone else and they've even had some of the surgeries. The facial recognition AI still, if it's a man and it even looks just like a woman and you can't tell the difference, the AI can tell the difference and it knows it's a man, and vice versa. How about that? Since people think technology should reign supreme over, what God says. So anyway, I guess we could call this like culture watch. I think it's a sad commentary on what's being allowed. But he couldn't do it if people weren't making him famous and going to his films and movies, if he wasn't winning all these awards, if there weren't so many people who were interested in seeing him and having a thing that he's in. If he weren't so popular, he wouldn't be cast as this role. So the onus is on us. The onus is on us to stop frequenting these things. We shouldn't be going. If we go, it validates it and makes it possible for him to continue on and do more of the same garbage. So, there it is. Now, I want to dive into the 5 co-host, Greg Gutfeld. He was breaking down the Trump decision about this whole Syria thing. And he called Donald Trump America's cab driver. Now, that's not one I've heard before, but let's dig in here. He says the president would have the same opinions you'd find from a blue-collar tax-paying American. Gutfeld feels like Donald Trump is stating simply that American interests come first because he'd rather see Kurds involved in their own war actually die for that cause than he would American troops. His simple logic, and he said, I don't mean simple as stupid, I mean it's plain as day, is our men aren't going to get killed. Now, Gutfeld was talking on the 5, and he was going back and forth with Juan Williams, of course, and then who he always brings the absolutely ludicrous perspective. And then Dana Perino was there as well. And Gutfeld went on to say, you can get mad at him and disagree with him, but he will accept the death of the Kurds before he accepts the death of American troops. And I go back to what the president said about writing those, he has to sign those letters to the parents and family members of slain soldiers. And what the president is saying is he doesn't like signing those letters. And the fewer of those letters he can sign, then, yeah, he's going to go that route. So whatever he can do to sign fewer of these letters, he's going to do. Now, Williams said he doesn't want a cab driver as a president. He wants a leader. He says pulling out of Syria creates more danger than it avoids. Now, I'm actually suspicious of people who automatically, before even listening to what the president has to say or his reasoning, say we need to be there. I'm against that. And I'll tell you why. Because if you don't need a reason for us to be in a war, then you really are just a warmonger and you don't care anything about Americans dying. And what business do I have listening to you? So it's not that you can't disagree with the president on his decision to pull us out of Syria. It's that if you disagreed before you heard why, then you're just a warmonger. And I don't have time for you. I mean that in the most sincere way. Happy, joy, joy, and God bless you. I don't have time. So I'm getting a little, I'm getting annoyed because I don't feel like out of all the things that the positions people could take on this issue, I don't feel like people are taking a position for principled reasons. They're just dive bombing in. They're angry. They have their feelings to vent. And they haven't thought one time about who's actually dying here. Who's actually putting their lives on the line? How many people do I know who have kids serving? That is a question that I think every one of us should ask. If you have a friend who supports the war in Syria and us being all over the globe in these conflicts, ask them, do you have any family members in the military, any children, any of your previous ancestors, your grandparents, great-grandparents, whatever, anybody in your family serve? And if they say no, that doesn't invalidate their opinion. You can still have an opinion about what we do overseas as a taxpayer and a citizen of this nation if you don't have family members who've served or you haven't served yourself. But it's a good question to ask. Next question. Do you know anybody? Do you have any friends? Do you have any relatives, far distant off, second, third, fourth cousins, anybody in your sphere who has children or is serving? Do you have any connection at all to the U.S. military or the Army National Guard, Air National Guard, anything? And if they say no to that, I guarantee you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. They're willing to spend everybody else's blood and treasure, but not their own. And I know that's kind of harsh, but deal with it. If you don't want to hear me say mean things to you, you're in the wrong spot, but you're in the right spot because you should hear me say mean things to you so you can toughen up and get your head right. All right, we'll be back after this.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Melissa from Michigan. I work an extra part-time job serving lunch at my child's school, but I still can't afford to put food on our table.
Daniel from California. Choosing whether to pay the rent or pay to fix the car to get to work doesn't leave us with much at all. Now we can't even pay for meals.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
You took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
First, I hold my hands out like they're on a steering wheel. Then I look over my shoulder. 1, okay, cool guy. 2, 3 times. Next, oh, I put it in reverse. Meep, meep, meep. Then I take it up and down, up and down. And that, kiddos, is called the forklift.
Dance like a dad. It's a great way to make a moment with your kids.
Now that's dancing. Sure beats flossing.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right.
Welcome. Thank you for being here today, and thanks for supporting the program. Especially, we've had really just a great time on social media of late. Thank you so much for doing that. Okay, so first off, I got to call out the people in the chat room for having a really funny back and forth on what they identify as: millionaires, tall people, their regular luggage identifying as carry-on luggage so they can get it onto the plane. I'm with you. I just wish it works that way, because what I find is that all this drama about who identifies as what only works for the liberals. And so if you are on Twitter, you should go to my Twitter feed and check out the video of some people getting really upset with some climate activists for blocking a road overseas. I retweeted that out with a comment because there's another story of some climate activists. They're called Resist something or other. They actually like to block streets, and they were blocking the tube in Great Britain. They were on top of the tube so that the people who wanted to get on it, they couldn't go anywhere because they were standing on top of it, and the tube operator wouldn't. Obviously, they're not going to start the train running with someone standing on top of it. So there were 2 people up there. So one of them threw something. It looks like something tiny, like a piece of paper or something. And when he did that, one of the people on the ground threw their water. It was a cup of water or something, threw it and hit him. And then he started cursing, and then they started cursing. And then the one guy who'd thrown it, jumped up and pulled the guy off the top of the train. And then the people on the ground started beating him up. These are regular commuters. So this wasn't like when there's an Antifa rally and the Antifa rally people are like, yo, hey, we want to beat some people up. We're here to bust heads. That's what Antifa rallies are like. And if you go, that's what you're going to get. This was a regular morning in this, and the train is stopped at a town for people to get on and travel to work. And these commuters were having none of it. So that's trending on Twitter. Dude got beat up pretty badly. At one point, the tube operator was like, get off of him. I'll have you arrested. And one of the people in the crowd was like, you're going to arrest all of us? And he looked around because there's 100 people standing there waiting to get on the train. So the climate activists over in Europe are starting to get, the people there are getting to their breaking point. And I just wonder how long it'll be here in the states, stateside. If the police don't step in and do their jobs to keep the peace and order, what will pedestrians and people who drive cars, whatever, be doing when these people literally stop traffic, stop them from getting to pick their kids up, stop them from getting to work, stop people from getting to job interviews, stop ambulances from getting where they need to go? You see what I'm saying? So let's get back to, I wanted to go over, so William Barr gave a speech on traditional values at Notre Dame, and people are oh my goodness, leftists are so upset by what he said. When I see what he said, it just confirms for me that President Trump chose the right guy to be our AG. And remember, the president doesn't choose these people in a vacuum. He has recommendations brought to him by all of his senior staff. He has think tanks like the Heritage Foundation and other places. They come in and they're like, here's our short list. Here's who we think you should choose. And then the president has to make a choice out from all of that advice. And he chose A.G. Barr, who first, he was acting and then he went in for the full Monty. So the quote from him is, the imperative of protecting religious freedom was not just a nod in the direction of piety. It reflects the framers' belief that religion was indispensable to sustaining our free system of government. So let me just tell you why this is so important. Because when we allow people to reduce religion to, you're just pious or you're just religious, you're just someone who you enjoy going to church or you enjoy going to Bible study or you like the Bible. When we reduce it to that, instead of putting it in its proper place, that people of a moral and faith tradition have fewer problems, better sex, longer lives, they're healthier, and their children turn out better. Their children have happier lives. It's a generational thing. Is this 100% foolproof? Of course not. As long as humans are involved, it's not going to be foolproof. But he's talking here about something that used to be so foundational and so easy for people to understand. And now it has become almost, it's like you're talking to a rock or this tumbler. If I said to this tumbler, you need to make sure that you read your Bible on a daily basis and go to church because that will civilize you and make you into a better person, this tumbler cannot respond. This tumbler is not going to actually do that. It is an inanimate object. And thank God, because I need something to hold my coffee. But if you say that to a human being and you get the same response that I got back from this tumbler just now, nothing, I got nothing back, right? That's a statement about the level of just lack of religious education that people actually are operating with. So the Attorney General said numerous measures of social decline are rising as religion recedes from public life. And I saw over at Christian Daily Reporter this morning, I saw just a link to the latest survey on religion in public life, which shows that we've gone from 78% of Americans saying that they're Christians to only 58%. So still a majority, but it's slimming down, isn't it? And when people are more likely to say they're none, they're not religious, they're not anything, they're also going to have a lot of trouble with right and wrong, truth and lies. They're going to have trouble discerning when someone is duping them, like what's happening with the Democrats. You can't even understand what's happening to you. You lack the mental acuity, the mental sharpness that comes from reading the Bible and understanding it, from discussing it with others, from studying it, from hiding it in your heart. It sharpens your mind. If you don't have that going on, you're not going to be able to discern when the enemy is literally got somebody standing in front of you, lying to you with a smile on their face like Nancy Pelosi does. You won't be able to tell. And that's what we're seeing. So the Attorney General said numerous measures of social decline are rising as religion recedes from public life, citing higher instances of drug addiction, mental illness, and suicide. Those outcomes are not random, but the fruit of a dedicated campaign against orthodox religious belief. Barr went on to say, this is not decay. This is organized destruction. Secularists and their allies have marshaled all the forces of mass communication, popular culture, the entertainment industry, and academia in an unremitting assault on religion and traditional values. He also went on to talk about state governments and municipal agencies that have been at the vanguard of that effort, noting that the Board of Education in Orange County, California, recently decided religious dissenters, so religious people, parents, could not excuse their children from portions of the school curriculum broaching LGBT issues. Schools are the usual forum for attacks on religious liberty, according to Barr. Now, I want you to kind of just put a pin in that for a second and hear what he just said. Parents in California are the legal guardians, and don't get mad at me for saying owners, but I'm coming to a point here. Those are their kids. The school district said, you can't decide what we teach your kids. You may not remove your child when we teach this subject. This is America. And do you see how coordinated that is? While they're putting this guy dressed up in a dress tuxedo, a man who wears more facial makeup than I do, on television and in movies where he plays the role of a woman while he is still a man. He doesn't even pretend to be a woman. He just wears dresses and puts makeup on. That's the cultural onslaught against your kids. The schools are like, yeah, we know you might not take your kids to that movie, but you're not going to take your kid out of this classroom so we can't teach them LGBT. And that is why it's so important for us to be, and please don't think I'm trying to talk down to you or preach to you. We all have the same problems. We all have budgets to balance. We all have, I'm sitting here. I'm only sitting here on this radio show right now, broadcasting to you because of listener support, because I no longer have a contract to do the radio. I have signed a contract with Sirius to be a fill-in host, but that is as it described. When they need someone to fill in, I'll get paid to do that when they pick me. So I'm sitting here because of you. So if you think for 1 second I'm saying that, I budgeted and we didn't homeschool our kids. Remember, our oldest homeschooled for senior year, but that involved her going to a learning center where she took those advanced classes. So when I say we have to be at a place as Christians, no matter where we live, if we hear a school board say, your kids belong to us, they're going to sit in this classroom and we're going to teach them how to put a condom on a banana, you need to be in the position financially where you can say, well, then we're moving. Well, then my kid is going to stay home with, husband, wife, grandma, anybody can homeschool. My kid is not going to sit there and let you teach them how to put a condom on a banana. Why don't you come teach me how to do it? I've never seen people look so radically different as the first time someone told me, it was a liberal, and we were at a school meeting, and she said, I think we should have the right to do X. It was something about the gendered bathrooms. And I said, I don't want my child exposed to that. And she said, I think that your values, if they're passed on to your child, might be hurtful to your child. And I think there ought to be a way to stop it. And I turned to her and I said, then why don't you stop me? Why don't you take control of my child and my household and my husband and all of our income and everything else? Why don't you stop me? And I've never seen anybody backpedal that fast. She was like, well, no, I didn't mean it like that. I said, yes, you did. You meant that you know better than I do for my child. And I said, let's just be glad we're all sitting here grown-ups and everything, because if this was a playground, we'd be fighting right now. And she was like, well, I think you're taking it too. No, I'm not. You want to see somebody go from 0 to crazy in less than 1 second? Come after the kids. But we don't all have that attitude, do we? We're too busy being nice. we're too busy being afraid that somebody might be mean to our kid when we're not around, instead of saying, you're not going to be around my kid because you're a demented, perverted purveyor of evil. So not only are you going to get behind me, you're going to get in my rearview mirror and you're going to disappear because I'm getting away from you. I'm not going to let you have access to my precious child, for whom I will be held accountable at the judgment seat. Because it's not just going to be explaining every word that we've uttered, every thought that we've let pass through our brain, every action we've taken, every action we haven't taken. We are also, if you have a child, if you're a parent, you're going to be responsible for those years when that child was under your control and you said, well, I just don't have time, or, we need this or that, or we have boat payments to make or car payments to make, or whatever it is that you have to pay for that prevents you from taking your child out of that environment. And it's not going to be an argument. God is not going to say, oh, wow, I get you. You had credit card bills. You couldn't possibly. You've got to make a choice that your children will not be a part of this cultural melee. If you allow these nasty, demented people, morally repugnant purveyors of evil, if you allow them to take control of your children's minds, and then later you're like, because I meet people like this too, and God bless them, because I understand what regret is like. I have regrets about our kids, and we still have one at home. But I hate it when I meet someone and they say, oh yeah, my kids are liberals. They went to public school. And I wasn't listening back then because we were working so hard. We just wanted to make sure they were in the best school district. And so now I'm praying that they come back to the Lord, because their kids haven't just left them politically. They've left the church. And this can happen to anyone. So I'm not sitting in judgment. But what I am saying is, if someone says to you, don't go this way, if you go this way, danger lies ahead. If someone's warning you, if people are putting up signs, if there's all kinds of information about how doing something not might, but will harm you, or worse yet, it will harm your kids, you can't just put something like that off. We've got to be ready to make the sacrifices that need to be made to get our kids away from these people. And that is just the God's honest truth. Wow, what a rant. Okay, so in connection with what he said about the LGBT issues and how the schools are the usual forum for attacks on religious liberty, the Attorney General noted that the Department of Justice recently intervened in a dispute between a gay teacher and a Catholic high school near Notre Dame. The case arose when the Archdiocese of Indianapolis directed Cathedral High School to dismiss a teacher in a public same-sex marriage or forfeit its Catholic affiliation. So the high school did so. The teacher, Joshua Payne Elliott, sued the school, and then the Justice Department filed a statement of interest arguing the lawsuit suppresses the Archdiocese's First Amendment right to expressive association and impermissibly asked the court to interfere with internal church matters. So the First Amendment precludes this court or a state actor from cooperating in plaintiff's attempt to stifle the Archdiocese's First Amendment right to expressive association, meaning the Department of Justice cannot join in with the plaintiff, who is the gay guy, in trying to suppress the First Amendment rights of the Catholic Church, because that would be the state interfering in a church matter. The First Amendment also precludes the court from entangling itself in quintessentially ecclesiastical questions, whether the Archdiocese properly interpreted and applied Catholic doctrine. The First Amendment commits that question exclusively to the ecclesiastical tribunals of the church. So anti-bar demonstrators picketed near the Notre Dame campus during his visit. Some protesters blew whistles in reference to a whistleblower complaint from that fake whistleblower. And, they didn't want him to be allowed to speak. But I think, I would say it now that this speech is one of the most important speeches that was made this year, especially by a sitting member of the, Trump administration. And I'll say when people look back, they will say that this speech was prescient and needed and consequential for this calendar year, that it was important that he made this speech, especially at a Catholic organization, a Catholic university. Hopefully people in the pews heard it and listened and will take heed. We'll be back with the last segment after this.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
Only you can prevent wildfires.
but I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Hey everybody, Rachel Ray here. Nothing brings a bigger smile to my face than cooking up a big meal for the whole family and lots of friends. But there's not enough room at my table for the 17 million kids in our country who struggle with hunger. That's why the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks collects surplus food to give hope to hungry kids. But they can't do it without your help. Support Feeding America and your local food bank at feedingamerica.org.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Woo! Let's get crazy!
In movies, when someone at a party jumps into a pool fully dressed, everyone cheers them on and jumps in too. Just so you know, in real-life parties, nobody jumps in after you. You just look stupid.
Come on, jump in! Come on!
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You know what really gets a party started? Indoor baseball. Yeah, just find a broom or a pool cue, and you can use like anything as a ball. Cans, bottles, shoes. Hey bro, toss me that avocado.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb, but if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul. Learn more at ultimatepartyfoul.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the program. If you're watching on one of our live streams and you notice that our screensaver or, during the commercials is the chat room, well, actually, it doesn't look like that when you're in it over at stacyontheright.com. This is the interface that I use on the streaming software. But the point is, Richard Layton and Smoke and Dub and Tracy, so many people, Chi, Cacti Forever, all the friends are over there at stacyontheright.com, and that's where they watch the show because there's a window that shows the program when it's live. It does not store the program there, but it shows you the same image that you can watch on Facebook. You can watch it there. So if you were trying to watch on Periscope today and you defaulted over to YouTube, you did the right thing. But if you want to know where pretty much it's always up is stacyontheright.com. That is the one place where you can pretty much find it all the time. If I'm streaming, it's there, but it's only there while I'm live. So the archive versions of the show, you can find them on Facebook. You can find them on YouTube. You can't find them at stacyontheright.com, mainly because I don't want to pay for storage and because I have these other mediums where you can find them. So, and then also because whenever we're fully live at LifeZet TV, which is at lifezet.com/LifeZetTV, whenever that's up and live and fully operational and functional, then we'll kind of reassess how we're doing this, but it will always be a stream. One of the streams will always be going to stacyontheright.com. So here's the thing. When you get over there, you scroll down, you see the window at the top. You can click play there. Then you can scroll down and just type in your first name, or you can log in as whatever it suggests you log in as, which is letters and numbers. you click down at the bottom, and then you're inside. Okay? So that's that. So here, okay, I'll go back on screen. Now, welcome back to the show. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to hit today on the program is the Trump administration cracking down on Chinese diplomats. Now, this is, in my opinion, the very best thing he can do, because anytime we have foreigners coming into our country on diplomatic kind of visas, where they're coming in and they're being treated special, they can't be prosecuted, they can't be arrested. If they're drunk driving, even if they kill somebody, they're immune. They have immunity. And we do this because we want our diplomats to have immunity in these foreign countries where there is just no... they don't have any concept of due process in a lot of these countries. So that's why we give this diplomatic immunity. So here's the reason why President Trump is pushing back. China has blocked American personnel in Beijing from meeting with key assets. So why are they doing that? Why are they doing that? The communist government blocking American personnel stationed in Beijing from meeting with key assets. The State Department will now require all Chinese foreign missions, including embassy staff and those working in consulates across the United States, to notify the Trump administration in advance of all official meetings held on American soil. So if a person from a foreign mission, a Chinese foreign mission, wants to meet with someone working in the consulate or embassy staff, they now have to notify the president. Now, this new directive, U.S. officials say, is a response to China's ongoing constraints of American diplomats. So Americans in China are not allowed to meet with local officials, academics, dissident groups. So basically, you can meet with anybody except any of those people. It's kind of a wide-ranging list, isn't it? So the U.S. restrictions are meant to push the Chinese government into behaving better and letting Americans have more free access and movement in China. According to a senior State Department official who was speaking only on background, until the restrictions are lifted, we're going to take some actions that will go some ways toward leveling the playing field. The State Department is also going to be requiring that all of the People's Republic of China foreign missions, their embassy and their various consulates around the United States, basically give the same kind of notification, but this includes any meeting that they're going to have with a local or municipal official, any visit that they're going to make to an educational institution that's official under their purview as diplomats, any official visit to a research institution. Now, here's my question. So it took them bullying our diplomats overseas before we took this action? Why would any Chinese diplomat need to make a tour of one of our educational institutions? Why would any Chinese diplomat have the right to go and access our research institutions? We just let anybody just roam around this place. It's like, the public library. You don't even need an identification to get in. What is going on? So they're just now figuring out that they maybe should restrict their access. Wow. So according to this on-background person, these restrictions basically add a little bit more reciprocity to the way that U.S. diplomats are treated in China, as opposed to how Chinese diplomats are able to operate here in the U.S. Of course, our job as diplomats is to improve mutual understanding and to do what we need to do to get access to what we need to get access to a broad range of stakeholders in the countries that we're assigned to. Unfortunately, in China, U.S. diplomats do not have unfettered access to the range of folks that are important to us for us to do our job well there. So that's what they're doing. They're trying to make some headway here. And here's the frequency level. If you're wondering, Stacy, did you just get a little head up over something that doesn't matter? How often do they meet? Well, here, I'll tell you. The State Department estimates that Chinese diplomats take at least 50 meetings a week, though a precise counting could not be provided at the time of the press briefing. He says, we're not even at the level where the Chinese are, but we're hopeful that if we can get their attention, that we might be able to affect a more level playing field where both their diplomats here and our diplomats there are able to have much more free and open access to all the various stakeholders that are required to do a good job as a diplomat. Wowza. Come on, people. Come on. So, well, there you go. I'm trying not to be that person who on a Friday, I'm all worked up and, got beads of sweat on my forehead and all that. But geez aloo, people. This is what we're working with. They just go wherever they want and meet with anybody they want. And we're still sitting around just, whatever we're doing. All right. So Good News Friday. The president was actually doing a rally in Texas last night. I was thinking about something else there for a quick second. And it was unbelievable. So first of all, he packed the stadium out. The stadium was to the gills, completely packed out. The Dallas Arena actually holds 20,000, and then there were thousands more outside the arena. It was President Trump's 6th visit to the great state of Texas, because people are always thinking, there was asked me, I got the thing with the cowgirl boots and all that stuff, and they're like, oh, so you must have do you wish you were from Texas or something like that? Well, I am from Texas. Okay, I was born in Texas. Yeah, y'all didn't know that, did you? I was born in Texas. So it's not like this is something that I can't come by honestly. Besides, cowgirl boots are America. They're not just Texas. But anyway, I kind of wish I was there last night. It looked like they had a ripping good time. The media keeps saying that he's just got no support. And it was just MAGA all day for miles on end. They just lost their ever-loving minds in Texas for President Trump. They were so happy. They started lining up 2 days before the event because they were like, I got to get in. I got to get in. Now, Beto O'Rourke tried to do a little something. Oh, yeah, Tracy's calling it out. He says, we're looking at real history. Looking forward is still just a kind of a fantasy. Beto tried to compete with Trump last night and it did not go well. Richard said, poor little wet pants Beto. Yeah, you guys, stop calling him Beto. Call him Francis because he's Irish, not Mexican. He's not a Mexican guy. So they were lined up by Thursday morning for several blocks. Current line outside of American Airlines Center for tonight's Trump rally, starting in about 9 hours. And this guy took a video and the people were stretched out all the way down the road and around the corner. The picture was taken 3 blocks away from it. People had lined up 2 days in advance. The rally started at 8 p.m. and it was a ripping good time. The president was in rare form as usual, mocking not just the Democrats, but anybody who deserved it. And I got to say, having seen him in person in a number of different settings. So I remember I was telling you guys about how a couple years ago when Phyllis Schlafly passed away, I was able to attend her funeral, which was held at the Cathedral Basilica here in St. Louis. And it's one of I think there are maybe 30 or so mosaic tile art installations that are still in existence in churches in America. And we have one in St. Louis. And it is beautiful, beautiful. It's actually a tourist destination that you can go and tour, and they have a tiny little museum underground. I don't say in the basement, I mean underground. It looks like you're inside, like the walls are curved. I mean, it's weird. There's a little museum down there you can go to, and you can see some like relics and artifacts. But the main event is walking through the cathedral. Like most cathedrals, it has a hushed air to it, and it's gorgeous. Huge, soaring ceilings, the flying buttresses, the whole nine. And the mosaic ceiling tiles are painted with scenes, and they shimmer. I don't know if they used gold leaf. You can't see, it's so high up, but it's just fantastic. And so that's where they had the funeral for Phyllis Schlafly. And Donald Trump flew in for it, and he spoke. So he was very somber. He was absolutely presidential. This was, I think, before he was president, though, because she passed away before the election, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it after? I could look it up. But anyway, it was that year. And he flew in. Actually, yeah, he was a president already. So he flies in. And then, of course, I've heard him at an indoor event here where he spoke to a small number of supporters. And I had a media pass to get into that. So I was at the back on the media stand. And I heard him when he came to Columbia, Missouri, and we did that 6.5 mile march to get to the actual aircraft hangar. And I was literally like, I could have thrown a balled up t-shirt and hit the stage where he was. That's how close I was to where he was. And I heard him speak there too. And his rally presentation is all about fun and disseminating information and connecting with the people in that room. And he does such a great job of it. And I can tell you, that's not my last Trump rally. That night, I will admit my feet were hurting so bad. I was thinking to myself, I'll never do this again, but I will. Next time he's in Missouri, unless there's something else going on, Lord willing, I'm there. I'm going to be there and I'm going to be having a good time. I will be wearing cowgirl boots. Yes, people, I will. So anyway, he had a 6th trip to Texas, and I think it was a huge success. And I just want for anybody who, if you don't like the president, if you think Trump supporters are racist, if you don't understand why people support the president or why they like him, then the best thing for you to do would be to attend a Trump rally. Not only will you not be harmed unless you harm somebody, not only will you not experience any negative after effects, but what you're going to get to do is see a bunch of the Trump supporters, and you'll get to gauge for yourself if they're racist or if they're homophobes or misogynists. They're just a slice of America, first of all. So there may be some racists in the bunch, but this is the same thing that happens at Netroots, where all the liberals gather together. Remember, it's always the liberals in my estimation. I've been this color since I was born. And I've been this political affiliation for almost 20 years. And I can tell you that the racial comments, 98% of the time, they come from people who are Democrats. They're the ones who say the racist things to me, not on the whole, on the large. It's not that someone on the right has never been racial to me. It's that it's usually, and by usually I mean 98% of the time, my email is the proof, it's libs. And they don't even care if you know who they are. Have I ever told you guys? 1 minute left, 30 seconds left. Maybe I have to save this story for another day. This lawyer who emailed me the nastiest garbage from his work account. I called over there, identified myself as a member of the media, and asked for their PR person. I left a message with the girl at the front desk. I said, I'd like the person who runs your public relations for this law firm to give me a comment on the following statement made by one of your attorneys to me in email. I'm a member of the media. You better believe he emailed me back and apologized profusely. And of course I accepted because I didn't want to see him get fired. But I could have taken that email straight to any one of the online magazines that take those kind of stories and totally ruined his life. Not that I'm such a great person, but that's the way it usually rolls down. All right. God bless. Have a great weekend.